Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lapdown Podcast. I'm Alex. That's Dan. We've actually had a week off from Formula One for once, which hasn't happened particularly often this season, and we don't get one next week. But we're ready to talk about Hungary, Dan. How are you doing, my friend?
It's great to be back. Thanks for having me back. It doesn't feel like we've had a week off, though. I don't know why. No. I'm sure I did something last weekend, but I can't really fully kind of remember what it was. Oh, no, that was it. England tried to kick a football around the field, didn't they?
There was it was briefly coming home and then didn't come home.
Yeah, well, was it ever coming home? I don't know. No. But obviously what did come home was Lewis Hamilton in Silverstone, and I'm still living off that buzz.
Yeah. Imagine if England had had the double bubble of a Hamilton at Silverstone and then a Euros win. That would have been it for sport. And then Wimbledon happened, but Andy Murray dead. So, you know.
Yeah, but he's only English when he loses, so.
True.
Other than that,
makes sense.
A proud Scotsman.
Proud boy. And obviously we're in between race weekends, so there's not necessarily quite so much breaking stuff to discuss this week, but we've sort of got a bit of an agenda that's very heavily speculation based, and this is a bit of a driver market special, as the seats and the dominoes start to fall, and we seem to get into the real nitty-gritty now as we approach the summer break. So we've got Hungary this weekend, and then Spa next weekend, and then we've got a month off before we go to Zandvoort. So I think the next 6 weeks could be relatively busy for some contractual movements. So in the absence of anything else, we thought we'd give that a little bit of a run over today. And as ever, we usually say this at the end of the pod, but I'll say it at the start now. If you've got thoughts on the driver market, lapdownpod@gmail.com, you can send us some thoughts. If you think that Carlos needs to be going somewhere in particular, you can let us know. Or if you would just like to engage with the pod anywhere, Lapdown Pod on pretty much any social you want to go and find us on, and we will get to uploading some reels again soon, because I nearly have flooring in this house, which is exciting. I don't have window coverings yet, but the flooring will be in next week. So from there, we can actually record some videos again. Maybe we'll have a big return after the summer break as well. Oof. There you go.
Oh, there we go.
Would be a big summer break signing for us. Would be the return of video.
A big return from nothingness.
Yeah,
I mean, because there wasn't a great deal there in the first place, was there? But there was something, and now there currently isn't, other than our kind of audible voices. So soon, soon you'll be
audible.
Audible? It sounds like a word that would fit. It's probably not entirely appropriate, but it would be nice. And then you get to see faces as well. And I mean, who doesn't like seeing faces?
Who doesn't like a face? Makes sense.
Right. If we're speculating about shit, shall I just run through and kind of tell you what's actually confirmed, and then we'll kind of
let's have what's the lay of the land? I assume we're not going to talk about the absolute bankers, or are we? You're going to give us a full recap.
Yeah, it will take me the whole of about 30 seconds, and I think this is accurate. But forgive me if I've missed it. But Red Bull, Max and Sergio, Ferrari, Lewis, Charles, Mercedes, George and Tubasa, McLaren, Lando, Oscar, Aston, Fernando, Lance, Alpine, Pierre Gasly, Williams, Albon, RBCarb.com, Racing Bulls, Yuki, Stake F1, Alfa Romeo, Sauber, soon to be Audi, Nico Hulkenberg, Haas, Oliver Behrman. Those 5 teams at the bottom, Alpine, Williams, RB, Stake, Haas, are all Tubasas as well. So I think as it stands, we've got Mercedes, Alpine, Williams, RB, Stake and Haas with a Tubasa. There's 6 gaps that we need to fill. And I feel that we are the marginally, remotely best qualified people to be able to talk about this and to fill those gaps.
Oh, yeah. I think this is why a lot of drivers haven't decided yet, because they've been waiting for this episode to hear what we think they should do, what we know they should do.
It's logical.
It's what we do. It's what we're here for. It's the service that we provide. So, okay, so we've got 6 teams that we know have seats available. Yep. If you're to believe, I think it was Andrew Benson, I believe, from BBC Sport, yesterday, tweeted with some confidence, and by that I mean he said it's happening. And generally, when the BBC says something's happening, they're not particularly tabloidy, and they don't like to come out and say, we've been told this or we understand this, unless they're pretty much dotted their I's and crossed their T's on it. Yeah. He said that Ocon is going to Haas to join the Bear Man for next year, which would in theory take us down to 5 seats remaining. I can see it. I think it makes a good amount of sense. Let's take it at face value and say that it is happening for the purposes of this. I think it's a logical move for everyone, I think, because Ocon is a surprisingly senior driver. He feels like he's about 19 still and a rookie. I think it's because he's quite a small guy. He's got quite a small head, and I think that takes seniority away from him. But he's quite senior, and he's obviously clashing with Gasly, who's quite senior, and those two were just never, ever, 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 ever going to get along at that team, and I don't know why they thought it was a good idea. Mm-hmm. Behrman is not going to, I don't think, have teammate conflicts in year one of his F1 career. He's going to keep his nose very clean in a lot of that. And yes, sir, Mr. Ocon, whatever you'd like, Mr. Ocon, I can see that happening a little bit. So I think that makes sense. I think it gives Haas a driver that can give detail and insight and feedback on car setups. Obviously, I'm not suggesting Ollie Behrman doesn't know what he's doing, but he's driven an F1 car all of 3 times. It's nice to have Esteban Ocon there with however many tens of race starts he's got. And I just think neither of them are particularly expensive drivers, and it's Haas. And I can't find a negative in that, Dan. I can't find a negative.
No, you think that they will get a safe set of hands that means they're not going to be constantly dipping their hands in their coffers to buy new rear wings and front wings and end plates and hubcaps and all that other good stuff that they have had to in the past, where their drivers have got a little bit close to some of the barriers around the circuit. Do you know the vibe and the image that I'm picking up from this move, assuming it is to happen? I assume various death scrolling on TikToks and Instagrams you've done, and I'm sure you've stumbled across bits where there's people with treadmills and they kind of put cars down on the treadmill and then they turn it up, and then sooner or later things fall off the back.
Content.
It's great content. Equally great content. I also like the marble stuff as well.
Oh yeah, the marble. Yeah.
That's very good. I like to sit there and I go, Blue's going to win, and it doesn't. But
maybe this is how we get video engagement when we do the long form ones after the summer break. We put a marble run in the middle of the two of us.
Could be.
Like how they put like the Subway Surfers on the side or something boring to keep kids entertained. We'll just do that.
It's a good shout.
Lock it in.
I would be keen and interested in buying marble run equipment to be able to film and record those races. So yeah, we can figure that out. And plus, if we ran it between Northampton and Sussex, it'd be fucking long as well, wouldn't it? It'd probably cover the length of a podcast, so that'd be good too. Yeah. Anyway, going back to what my original point was about treadmills and die-cast Formula One cars, is I feel Esteban has kind of gone from the last but one row, and is now probably on the final row of that treadmill. And everybody sat on Instagram whilst they're, I don't know, on the toilet or whatever they're up to, because I don't see you doing much else other than that whilst you're death scrolling on things. And it's just clinging on. There is a chance that if like a little crash happens further up the treadmill, that he could find his way back up. But everybody's sitting there going, sooner or later, that Esteban, he's fallen off the back of that treadmill and he's not going to be in Formula One anymore. Yeah. Yeah, and I think if you're Esteban as well, I know Alpine have helped themselves a little bit. They have come back a teensy bit. But you've got Nico Hülkenberg sticking that Haas in like P7 twice this year, I think. Like Grand Prix finished P7, not just a freak qualifying. On merit, he has finished P7 a couple of times. The car is not a tractor at every track. So I don't think it's a bad move. And Haas seemed to, after a few years in the doldrums, seem to have an actual trajectory now of performance and a very young and a relatively young driver pairing now with a bit of experience that could go quite well. I will say my treadmill analogy is along the lines of the fact that if somebody comes along with a bit more money than Esteban, he's gone, or another Ferrari kid turns up, or somebody gets released from, I don't know, an Aston Martin or something like that, there's a great chance that he just gets bumped down the ranks.
Absolutely.
That's kind of what I'm saying. Does not take much. Yeah, not because I think he stinks, but I just don't think Haas kind of hang on to much. They don't have a great deal of sentimental value, do they? No. I think he gets bumped pretty quickly. Mercedes, can we talk about them? Yeah, because you keep talking. Well, you keep talking generally. Otherwise, it'd be a pretty boring podcast, wouldn't it? Yes. But you keep mentioning about the fact that Toto keep doubling down on this. We're kind of in talks with Max Verstappen. I mean, it might happen. I don't know. But it kind of feels like it has quietened down a little bit. There doesn't really feel like there's a great deal of kind of concrete conversations going on, or at least kind of online or in articles or anything like that. And then that either means the fact that everybody's just given up and they just feel like Kimi Antonelli's an absolute done deal, and sooner rather than later, Toto's just going to go, ta-da, and everyone's going to go, wonderful. And I suspect that'll probably be, I don't know, half a dozen rounds after that kind of jump in the Williams when he takes over from Logan after the summer break. Because then it will go, oh, look, he's actually really good. And then Mercedes can go, we told you, he's in. Or it gives him a little bit of wiggle room that if he absolutely stinks the house out or can't reach the pedals, or his mum needs to get him back before 10 o'clock for bedtime or anything like that, then it gives him a little bit of wiggle room. But is it going to be Kimi Antonelli, or is there another name that's being floated around? Because Esteban Ocon was one, wasn't he? Just
yeah,
like
he
a bit
was.
Of a stopgap.
Well, and Toto's his manager as well, isn't he? So
Yeah.
that sort of made a bit of sense. Kimi, where's he gone? Because there was, for a couple of week period there, a lot of Antonelli convo. And we were hearing that name a lot. And then he was tyre testing, and then he was doing this, and then it was that, and everyone was keeping an eye on him in F2 and all this, that, and the other. And it just feels like the Kimi radar has turned itself down a few notches, which I think means one of two very different things. It's, as you say, it's either a done deal and it's absolutely locked in, so that there's actually not many rumors anymore because there's not many people talking about it because it's happened and they're just waiting to put a tweet out. Or he has fallen away and he's been put on hold almost, and that's all sort of suspended. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because he's not lighting up F2 in a meaningful way.
No.
But then again, Ollie Behrman isn't lighting up F2 in a meaningful way, and he's just got himself a drive next year and drove the Ferrari earlier this year. So that's not necessarily the be-all and end-all. But yeah, it's just gone weirdly quiet. Logan Sargent, in another weird way as well, has perked himself up in the last 2 weekends, which is funny what, if you're not Perez, what a bit of pressure does to your driving. Can I see Williams sticking with Logan after the summer break? If he goes P13 or above the next 2 weekends, I can see them finishing the season with him because of the money and some of the interest that he brings.
Yeah.
I think if he has a P16 and a P18, I think, unfortunately, F1's very cutthroat, and I think he could get binned. But I don't feel like he's dead. I don't know why. I don't have anything to base that on, but I don't feel like Logan. I think he is still, in theory, taking some last breaths.
Yeah, I don't believe certainly Kimi Antonelli isn't, and I don't believe Logan Sargent is a long-term option for Williams. I don't see Sargent being in the seat for 5 years, and certainly if everything is believed what we hear, then Antonelli definitely isn't going to be in that seat for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And this is an interesting segue, and one of the guys that keeps being touted about it is obviously Carlos Sainz on the way out of Ferrari to be replaced by Lewis Hamilton, and James Vowles has been constantly coming out going, we'd love him. The Aston seat's gone. The Haas seat, as we believe it, is gone. That's finished. There aren't many other options. The Audi one is a potential. Can I ask a really, really stupid question? And there might be a really obvious answer. But why on earth aren't Mercedes providing Carlos Sainz with as much chorizo, paella, Estrella, and everything he possibly likes that he could possibly consume to get him down to Brackley for an interview?
Yeah.
Surely? There's not even been spoken about.
No, and that is the weird bit, is that it's not been referenced at all. And I think part of the reason for that, they must have had a conversation. I cannot foresee a world in which managers and agents and all the rest of it have not been around a table or on a Zoom a couple of times about that. If they haven't, there's a fundamental issue there. Because even if you're just sounding him out and getting an idea of a price tag, he is one of the better drivers on the grid. He's a Ferrari driver at the minute. They don't tend to put shit blokes in a Ferrari. You explore the potential. I think, and it is a bit of a narrative that, okay, I'll buy into what I'm being told on social, but there is that narrative that Toto is still so burned about missing out on Verstappen that he is got his blinkers on to this little baby-faced, he seems like quite a good driver, to take a punt on that. Mm-hmm. There's no logical explanation for why we haven't heard a lot of Carlos to Mercedes chat, because it's not as if Mercedes don't have the budget for whatever Carlos would want.
Exactly.
You can't say from a Carlos side that he's not looking at the Mercedes going, yeah, okay, that's actually quicker than our car at the minute. I wouldn't mind jumping in that. They're a banker of a team that, as we've seen in the last 2 years, even if they get it wrong on the regs, they will resolve it. They have the mental capacity and the money and the facilities to fix a donkey of a car.
Yeah, and wrong was P5.
Yeah.
Wrong
and that's
wasn't
P16. Angry Toto was P7 and 8, and he was livid. I don't think they've, apart from a crash or an error, I don't think they've not scored points this year with both cars, unless something dramatic, like pure pace. I don't think they've been outside the points this year. I get it. I agree. I don't think it's going to happen, weirdly.
No, me neither.
I've got nothing to base that on, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
No.
I also saw an article, because we talked about Carlos to Williams would make a little bit of sense, but then I've seen an article that James Vowles has come out quite firmly and said, we're not going to be a stopgap. We're not willing to just have him for a year before he then goes over to another team. That's not what we're interested in. I think we saw that with Albon, has signed a multi-year contract. He's buying into the project. I know contracts in F1 tend to mean very little, but he's buying into the contract. And you just think, I can't see you going to Williams anymore, because I don't think James Vowles comes out and says and has those quotes about not being a stopgap unless he's responding to something. That's not just a quote that you offer up for no reason.
I think it could be a quote to put a bit of pressure on and say, you need to hurry up and make a decision here, because we've got a good offer for you on the table. It's a 3-year deal that we want you to be part of this program for a long time. We don't want you to keep flirting with Porsche, because that's who's going to come over and take over from that Haas energy drink. No, not Haas, is it? Stake, F1 gambling, Sauber, Alfa Romeo team, or whatever they're called, which, to be honest with you, is an utter shitbox. And I'm not convinced it fixes it if you go and stick a Porsche badge on it. There's bigger things to solve there. The one guy that then kind of potentially causes the entire stack of cards to come crashing down is, of course, the man that's just signed a new multi-year deal with Red Bull, is Sergio Perez.
Yeah.
These performance clauses that have been put in and that Christian Horner
allegedly.
Well, I don't know. I think Horner's
they're in there. I suppose
to them. He? And he said, well, we kind of thought we'd offer him this contract and it would settle him down and help him perform, but it hasn't worked. And he said that out loud on TV. That whole thing could cause the entire thing to come crashing down, because if Sergio Perez gets dumped by Red Bull, Sergio Perez isn't going in the baby team. He's getting dumped all the way down to, respectfully, to a Stake or to a Williams, or
I think nowhere, honestly. I think he goes
completely out of Formula One. I could see if that happens soon, i.e. they turn around and go, do you know what, Danny Rick, get him back in for vibes. Then we'll go, good news, lads, or Liam, we've got a drive for you. He comes into RB, and then Sergio goes bump, 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 down to Williams, and then obviously Carlos Sainz is left with a year at Audi Romeo. I tell you what, they've come up with a shitty name, haven't they? All of that other stuff, and that leaves him with an option.
Yeah, again, absolutely nothing to base this on. I don't think Perez goes anywhere else. I think it's IndyCar time, or it's retirement time, I think, because if I'm another team, I'm not excited about signing Sergio Perez, and I go back to my sports media hat, and I think I don't want to put that tweet out saying, hey, how exciting is this? He got dumped mid-season by the best team on the grid because he couldn't even put the fastest car into Q3 5 weeks in a row, and now we've got him.
Does he bring more cash to Williams than Logan Sargent, though?
Oh, nah. I don't actually know how much Williams need pay driver cash anymore now that Doralton's involved. And I think that the reason that perhaps Logan came in was not so much because they needed cash. It's because Doralton liked the idea of having an American. Ultimately, Doralton are also an investment company, and they're going to want returns, and you make more money by finishing higher in the driver standings. And I'm sure I don't know how many Williams Perez caps you realistically sell. I'm very confident, I think now, based on, it feels like Liam Lawson has been pushed out in the cold a little bit as well in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
He had like a Red Bull test that you don't know anything. Doesn't sound like it went brilliantly, bearing in mind that Danny Rick did a Red Bull test and was in a different car like 2 days later, parachuted in. It seems like whether Lawson had an off day or just wasn't there, or whether they had really high bars that he just didn't wow. He seems like he's really fallen away. And that then, it's massive house of cards. Is it next year that they have to have a drive for him, we believe?
I think so.
Otherwise, he is free.
Yeah.
Because then I'm going to throw a whole American football style Hail Mary draw up play for you here, right? I'm going to tell you that Perez is going. It's a bold claim. I cannot see Sergio Perez finishing the year unless something fundamentally changes. Because if what's to be believed that the only reason that they signed, which would make a lot of sense, signed this contract renewal on him so soon, was to put the performance-related clauses in that weren't there before, that you're doing that because you want to use them. You don't reshuffle a contract to put exit clauses into a contract unless you would like to exit that contract realistically. Yeah. So I can see Perez going. I don't see any world where anyone other than Danny Rick goes straight across into that Red Bull. Yes, I'm a Danny Rick fan. I love the bloke. I want to see him in F1. I want to see him doing well, but I don't think any sane-minded individual could realistically think they're going to put Yuki across. I think if they were going to do that, it would have happened. And I don't think they're going to throw Liam Lawson straight in, because I think it makes more sense, actually, that you put Danny Rick in there, you put Lawson in the RB so that he can find his feet properly. You put Danny on a 1.5 contract, see him to the end of these regs, and then you start fresh with Liam Lawson.
Yeah.
So I can see that happening. I can also see, and this is where I'm going to start getting bold on you now, if Kimmy's cooling, right? Mm-hmm. How do we feel about a Kiwi and a Merc?
I can see it.
He's young, and Toto likes him young, allegedly.
Can see it.
That if he doesn't get this Red Bull seat and gets freed up, do Mercedes look at him and go, actually, he's a safe gamble in a way, because he's still young enough and has shown enough potential to take a bit of a punt on. We can stick him on 2 years while, Antonelli gets some armpit hair, and then, because Antonelli, I think, is tied into the Mercedes program as well, right? Like he is the opposite of Lawson at the minute, that they've got him ready to go. They can incubate him while they poach someone else. I could see that. It's a bit of a wild one. I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've
we don't know anything.
I've got nothing to actually kind of turn around and say, no, it definitely wouldn't happen. I don't know if ever there's really been a move between kind of a Red Bull to a Mercedes kind of driver move, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I know from the family to family, yes. Like Albon went from Red Bull to that Mercedes kind of column, didn't he, so to speak? But to go up into like the works team from like the Red Bull stable, it feels kind of like a Romeo and Juliet type situation, that the two families shouldn't kind of come together, and if they did, there'll be all kinds of war, and then Shakespeare will start writing plays and use words that no one understands. But I like it. I mean, hey, why not? Throw things out there, see what sticks. And if we're sat here in a couple of months' time and Liam Lawson's pen to paper for a Mercedes deal next year, then stonks to you.
What a guy. I will also say, to go to your Romeo and Juliet family's war analogy, can you imagine the shit-eating grin on Toto Wolff when he announces that he snatched Liam Lawson from under Horner? Well, I know Horner's obviously not that keen on him, otherwise he would use him, but under Red Bull and Marco and whatever, the press release, like, you could hear the jamminess in his voice, I reckon. I reckon Toto would ask to write that one personally. Yeah. I could see him almost doing it to fuck with him. But look, I mean, there you go. We've not cleared anything up at all there about the driver market, but I think
we didn't even speak about Alpine, but I mean, who cares about them?
No, it's going to be doing, I think, isn't it?
Probably.
I think we've heard no rumours about anyone, which makes me think that you're just going to promote your reserve driver and it's going to be sort of a boring in. Another Aussie on the grid. He's an Aussie, isn't he? He's not Kiwi. I think he's an Aussie.
Yep.
I'll take another Aussie on the grid. I don't intend to support Alpine, but I would prefer Doohan to do well. But But yeah, I mean, look, we've made some bold claims there, none of which I think are that bold. I think they're all sort of grounded in potential. And I think you had a valid point there that something's going to happen with Sergio, and then I think we're going to see a week of driver announcements. And I think that's what's going on.
I think
to finish off,
the things we've said, I reckon that's probably the one that carries the most weight.
Yeah, he's not finishing the year. There's no chance. There's just you don't suddenly become that much quicker in the same car when your head is in the mud. Like that doesn't happen.
No.
I'm going to ask you one question to finish on the driver market chat. Do you think Carlos Sainz will definitely be driving in Formula One next year?
No.
Talk percentages to me.
I'm about a 60-40 in favour that he will be there right now.
That's not a huge amount of confidence.
But I just feel it wouldn't be unusual just to kind of take the year out and wait for the Porsche kind of set up and the family to get going, because I mean they need some help. They'll be developing something. They'll need some help. I'm sure that they'll give him something to do in a WEC team for the year or something, and he'll go off and win Le Mans or whatever, whilst also sitting on a simulator in Stuttgart and doing laps of various things with data and stuff on there. So I'd like him to be there, but I do realistically think there are becoming less and less options. And I mean, I can't see how excited you'd be about going to that fluoro green and black dog turd of a car next year in that stake setup. Like, what would be the point?
I think he would need a guarantee. He would need to have signed the 2026 Audi contract with a clause of I don't have to drive it while at stake. I think, in order to, like, he would have to have a timed contract. I think to make it.
Is it going to be Porsche or Audi? Because I've said both.
It's Audi.
It is Audi. Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah, it's Audi, and they're now going to be partnered with BP, and then Porsche are coming into RBPT. Are they working?
Yeah.
No, that's Ford. That's Ford with RBPT. Porsche are coming in and going to work with someone, if they were to be believed, I think.
Yeah.
And now Toyota apparently fancy a little nibble, and VW fancy. Everyone wants a little nibble of the pie all of a sudden.
Why not? Hey, why not?
And then there's talk that McLaren might use the Red Bull powertrain's engine. It's like, lads, let's not do that. I don't think that doesn't. I feel like Mercedes maybe know what they're doing with making engines a little bit better.
I think they're probably doing all right. Anyway,
they're doing fine.
Should we talk about Hungary instead?
We should talk about Hungary. And I mean, there's not a huge amount to talk about Hungary realistically. We've had a couple of weeks off. It's back to a normal weekend. We're not sprinting. I would like to shout out the trophy. This is the one that Lando Norris broke last year, or the equivalent of. I think it's very pleasant. I think it's quite cool that it's a old school. It's not some AI-designed carbon fiber wank. It's a proper trophy that looks like it could have been the same one that was given out for 140 years, and I like it. It's jazzy, and I like it. I didn't like the Silverstone one. I thought it was weird. That was a carbon fiber wank fest, that one. That was just bizarre.
It sounds incredibly painful.
Oh, yeah.
Like carbon fiber
And
splinters.
I think that trophy looked painful as well. Like, that looks sharp.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to sit on it by mistake, would you? But
don't drop it.
I agree with you. I agree. I think it looks authentic. And as I've said numerous amount of times, I'm a big fan of authenticity and nostalgia and relatability with what's happened in the past. And I feel that I agree with you. I feel that trophy from Hungary gives exactly that. It gives nice kind of Hungarian vibes. I've never been to Hungary, but I would imagine they're probably quite into their porcelain. And also, I kind of feel like I've seen drivers lift that same trophy for the last 30, 40, 50 years, or however long the Hungarian Grand Prix has been going for. And I'm a fan of that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like it. I think the only trophy I prefer more is that gorilla they used to give out at the French Grand Prix. That was, what a time to be alive that was. And as we look ahead to Hungary, we don't know who's going to win.
No.
How nice is that? We don't actually know who is going to win on Sunday, and we don't actually know who's going to qualify on the front row on Saturday afternoon. And isn't that bloody refreshing?
It's lovely. The smart money goes on Max still.
Yeah.
The smart money, like if you had 10 quid, you'd get even money, maybe slightly worse than that on Max. However, those prices on Lando, Oscar, George, a bit of Lewis now, just starting to kind of just narrow those odds a little bit. Ferrari have gone out a touch, but they're still not out of it. Like,
Yeah.
you're just as likely to get a Charles or a Carlos sticking it on pole. And then it does feel like you've got about a 6.5 drivers that kind of could be there or thereabouts. And I say half because there's like a bit of Charles and a bit of Lewis and a bit of Carlos. And that, I think, works out to be about half a driver. So, and that's a great thing.
Yeah.
It's just good.
And we've said this so many times, and I will keep repeating it. I do not care if Max Verstappen wins, provided I didn't know he was going to win by lap number 4.
Yeah.
If not quali, if not FP2 when they've done the long runs. Like, crack on. You deserve to win as much as you want. No one got angry when Tiger Woods, was winning. I think I've said that exact thing on this pod before, that, your Roger Federers of the world, when they were dominating, everyone was like, cheesy peeps, he's good at tennis, isn't he? Max Verstappen's very, very good at driving, and it's not even now this whole, it's the car argument. We can put that to bed because the other car's not making it out of Q1. So, yeah, just yay. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the races again. I didn't not look forward to the races, but I'm now excited about the races, thinking like, I need to pay attention here. The start's going to be important, and then there's intrigue all the way through.
I like it. Last thing I want to pose to you before we kind of wrap this fantastic episode up. Similar to wrapping things up, Max is probably well on his way to win another World Drivers' title. I think from quick maths, did I say about an 84-point lead over Lando Norris?
So he's got about 3 races in the back pocket, doesn't he?
And then 105 points ahead of Charles Leclerc in third place. And I mean, yes, okay, Oscar's kind of finding form. He's 124 points. He's nearly half the distance back. And George and Lewis are just ticked over 100 points each compared to Max's 255. So I think that's done. But, and this might contradict everything we've just spoken about with who's going to go where and who's going to sit in what seat, there is a 71-point gap between Red Bull and Ferrari in the Constructors. And we've got several races left in this season. McLaren are a further 7 points back, and I think Mercedes are about 152 points back from quick maths there. So they're a long way from home. But with McLaren Ferrari need to pull their finger out their arse sharp if they've got aspirations to do this. But if we see that this constant kind of, Checo's not scored points again, double points finish for Ferrari, McLaren, and if Max doesn't then win every single week and pick up the fastest lap and get his 26 points and just goes, cheers, cheers, cheers.
Yeah.
Are we going to have a conversation by the time we get down to, Singapore maybe? That we're going to go, do you know what? If McLaren have a couple of decent races here, we could be talking about McLaren being Constructors Champions.
Oh, yeah. 100%. 100%. If Ferrari can't reverse this slump, and the McLaren's trajectory is outrageous, and Red Bull have one hand currently tied behind their back. Like, it's almost the smart money, which is a bold claim, but the smart money is almost on McLaren based on the 12 races of data that we have to work with. I think if you put that into an AI thing and said, using this information, who is going to win by the end of the year, I think it would probably say McLaren, because it's consistently scoring big buckets of points with 2 cars, and their reliability seems excellent is the other thing that we haven't really talked about. Those cars haven't coughed this year. I'll say that now, and they'll both explode, around the first corner of quali. But yeah, no, I think genuinely McLaren are probably best placed at the minute to win the Constructors. Which, when you think where they were last year in where do we start? Bahrain. I think McLaren in Bahrain last year to now being halfway through this season, not favourites, but in a very, very good favourite-y looking spot to win the Constructors. Let's go, Zach. Let's go.
It's good. It's exciting. It's another little nugget to look forward to.
Yeah.
There's
nuggets everywhere.
Little kind of sub-story going on in the background of each Sunday afternoon, which is nice.
Yeah.
And that's good. And hopefully we do continue to see it, and hopefully those teams do kind of continue to kind of compress together, and it does become closer. And as I say, I don't think anybody's going to overtake Max as an individual, but I do think 2 drivers could overtake Max as a team.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Right, I'm not going to do the email and social sign-off today because I did that earlier. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to say, if you listened this far to the pod, please go and rate it somewhere. Go and give it 5 stars on Spotify, if listening on Spotify or on iTunes, and say some words on iTunes about how much you like that Alex guy, and also Dan's here. And give us a few little ratings on that, because we are slowly widening our little Lapdown family. And 5-star reviews help with that. And also, if you know someone that quite likes Formula One, or someone that just likes podcasts in the car that we can get into Formula One together, you should send the podcast to them. Because if everybody did that, like one of these MLMs, we can grow things from there. So that's my sign off for today. It's not about emailing us. It's about emailing us to a friend, or use a more modern method of communication. But either way, get the link to a friend. And we will be seeing you next week as we look ahead to Spa post-Hungary.
Looking forward to it. Enjoy Sunday, mate. And that was a good sign-off as well. It was nice. Bit of variety.
That's what I do. That's what I do.